All right, welcome back to the Weekend Journal here on News Talk 580 WTCM. I'm Jack O'Malley, your lovable host. Your humble host, too. Oh, my goodness. Well, it has been a busy week. I actually traveled to the land of the state capital earlier in this week. I'll give you my thoughts and impressions when we get to that part of the show. But right now, I like to talk about things. I like to say this is kind of the newsmaker segment. And I thought, and you know, I try to focus on all things Michigan here. Every once in a while, something from Washington, you know, kind of bubbles into the state, but overall focused on the state of Michigan. And I know, historically speaking, that when it comes to all things politics, polls are everywhere. Polls this, polls that. And one of the things I hear, of course, is, well, nobody's ever asked me what I think, so they must be bunk. Well, I thought, let's get somebody on here who knows what they're talking about. And I have asked, and she has accepted, Janelle Leonard, who is the owner of Marketing Research Group, also known as MRG, based in Lansing, longtime political type person. And Janelle joins us. Janelle, hi, how are you? Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Jack. It's good to be on.
Yeah. So, you know, as polling goes, you are kind of one of those voodoo doctors, aren't you? Because, you know, the old polling, well, it can do whatever and say whatever you want. But that's not really what you strive for, is it?
No, absolutely not. I mean, pollsters, I'm sure there's some out there that game the game, if you will, and try to do that just to make headlines and stuff. But no, I mean, my job is to make sure that we're providing quality data for our clients. Now, our clients range from like corporate clients to political clients, and then we throw in trend questions based off of how people think the country or the state, if they're on the right track or headed in the wrong direction, those types of things. And then if it's close to election, we'll throw in a ballot test just to see where the voters' minds are on the upcoming election of sorts. But yeah, you're right. It can be very voodoo, and you have a lot of people that do not get polled. And actually, just recently, I've had a couple of friends say, "Hey, I got polled on this question," kind of thing, from a different pollster, and I was just, "Wow!" So people actually do get called. This is actually a real thing. So it's kind of fun and encouraging with that. But I think the biggest thing with the polling is that people need to understand that polling is a snapshot in time. Mm-hmm. It is not necessarily meant to be a prediction, but is a snapshot in time as to, in this case, you know, where are people thinking they want to vote in an upcoming election. And that's important that we just look at it in that lens of it being right now. Let's use the polling that's happening right now, even in the upcoming election for 2026. Okay, we're about 18 months out of that election. Right now, those polls are truly just indicators of where name ID is based off these people. If the polls up today were accurate for what will actually happen in the 26th election, based off previous election cycles, Mike Cox would have been governor and Rick Snyder never would have been. Or you would have had a Sharif Thanadar versus a Gretchen Whitmer. There were some polls that had him ahead at some point. Some had Sandy Pensler over John James in 2018. So, like I said, they help give a snapshot of what the race is like, and it gives you a small look into the race as it relates to that date and time when the poll is taken.
So exactly correct, I would think is, and you know, months and months before an election, people aren't even thinking about an election. In many cases, they might not even know all the names that are running. But as you get closer, people start paying more attention, and I would think your polling then says, whoa, wait a minute, we're getting a little more accurate here. How do you go about polling? I mean, in the old days, we all had antiques called landline phones, which you know, most people just answered. Now it's on cell phones, and I don't know that number. I'm not answering it. I'll let it go to voicemail. So how do you pollsters get an accurate read? How much? You know, if you want to get 600 people, let's say, do you have to call 1,200?
Yeah. So it comes down to honestly the demographics of the state. We want to get a true representation of what the state looks like when it comes to pulling people out of Detroit versus Grand Rapids. I mean, you can't, if we're doing a 600-person poll, you don't want 300 of them to come from the UP, right? That's not truly representative of the state. So you want to have it broken down for that. You also want it to look proportionate for your gender and your age and your education as well. Those are critical things. You can do live phone calls. You can do cell phone calls. We do some texting and call boards as well, which is an online platform. It truly just depends on what the client is wanting on our end and how we deliver and how we recommend them getting the results that they're looking for, just to make sure that it is solid information that they can then use to achieve their goals with that. So every pollster is going to have a different methodology, if you will. And the methodology is important when it comes to getting accurate results for the clients or predicting an election, because the methodology is usually not what is shared in a news article. Okay, you get the headlines of, so-and-so is ahead of so-and-so, but understanding the depth of that poll is really what we as pollsters look at to see what the accuracy would be for that. There are many different pollsters around the country that do trend polling for the elections. So you'll kind of see, polling that when the pollsters dive into it, they want to see what the trend is and how a candidate is favoring among certain demographics. So in this last election, you saw over time how Trump was starting to penetrate into the union vote and the Arab American vote and the 18 to 21-year-old vote. They are snapshots, yes, but if you're doing it over a period of time, you can see where a candidate is gaining strength, where some of their weaknesses may be, and where as a campaign they need to redirect their efforts to make sure that they're winning the election.
Well, I know. When you were talking about that, I was just thinking in the radio world, when you look at ratings, you could take any particular ratings book and say this, but if you take a look at the trends, you can see, oh wait, we had a rough book this time, but the trends say, hey, we're doing really well. So I would assume that's basically the same thing in polling.
Absolutely. There's an art and a science to it, right? Yeah. And the science is understanding the methodology to make sure that you are putting your candidate in the best position for them to win.
So your company does kind of a early spring poll and a fall poll, so there's another one coming. And I know it's been a little bit here, but what did your polling tell us about, like, Trump and how people feel about the state of Michigan, that sort of thing?
Sure. So we did a comparison of our poll for this time, with it being, a couple months into his first year of his second term, but we did a comparison to the spring of 2017 when he had first taken the helm as well. And, honestly, the surprise is that there wasn't any surprise. Like, those that love him, love him. Those who hate him, hate him. He's been very consistent through that. So his approvals have been in the mid-40s and his disapprovals have been in the lower 50s throughout the time that we've been polling him in his role as president. That is a stark contrast to where we had President Biden. Okay, like, obviously he had very polarizing views and he lost a lot of his base. But like I said, Trump has been steady Eddie in his support. Republicans love him, Democrats hate him, and then the rest is up for grabs.
Yeah, very true. And so then your polling also said, hey, most people in the state were fairly optimistic about the state of the state, but that might not be true as to how they felt the country was going. Is that correct? Correct.
Yeah. So, when we polled this last fall, 66% believed that the country was on the wrong track. And now it's 56. So it has improved. We have a ways to go, but it has gotten a little bit better. And again, going to Trump, at the end of the day, he was elected on many of the promises that he put forward on the campaign trail. He mentioned the tariffs. He talked about DOGE. He brought Elon Musk on stage and campaigned with him. So a lot of the things that he is doing are things that are just campaign promises that he's fulfilling on that. That doesn't mean that it's not uncomfortable, right? Change agents are uncomfortable, and that's where we're seeing some of the positivity come back a little bit, but it's not quite where I think the Trump administration and Republicans would like to see. But we'll see. I think a lot of what is happening is part of a longer game of what they're trying to do. We'll see how this tariffs shake out, how the education stuff, any of this budget, the big, beautiful bill they're working on now, all of it's headlines right now. But once it actually becomes law or starts getting enacted, then we'll see that true trickle-down effect and see how it impacts the voters' view moving forward.
Very good. So, folks, Weekend Journal on Newstalk 580 WTCM. We're speaking with Janelle Leonard, owner of MRG, the marketing research group out of Lansing. Talking about Trump here real briefly, but we're speaking of Trump in regards to Michigan. I've heard, I don't know, I didn't go through all the numbers, but one of the issues that you have with Trump, and I would assume it carries over into the polling, is a lot of people came out and voted for Trump, and they don't normally. The numbers were up for Trump this time around, but they weren't out before. There's a certain group of people that are just for Trump, and they don't really pay attention to the state Senate or the state House or whatever the case may be. Does that play into polling too?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I think the one thing that Republicans need to be cautious of moving into future election cycles is that those that voted for Trump are considered Trump voters. They should not be considered Republican voters. Trump is a very unique politician, and he's been able to capture these very interesting demographics, like we talked about, the union vote, the black vote, the Arab Americans, the 18 to 21-year-olds. Those should not just be considered, okay, they're now Republican votes moving forward. And Republicans really do need to work to solidify that as a part of their base, but it's going to take a little while for that. On the other side, Democrats, they've lost trust with those demographics, and they either need to rework that trust and build that relationship back up, or they need to find their votes somewhere else. So all of that kind of factors into the polling as well, and trying to see where those trends are, not just from the results of the 24 election, but also moving through the next cycle too, trying to see where the trends are lining up, so that the campaigns can enact their campaign ideas and strategies accordingly.
Gotcha. So, and one last thought on polling itself. A candidate, when they come to you and say, as opposed to you just saying, all right, what's the feel out there? When a candidate comes to you and says, hey, can you do some polling for me? Or they go to anybody and say, are they looking for specific things? And I guess it would depend on the race and what it was, but they would have specific things that they would say, hey, can you go out and find out about?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we talked about, every client is going to be different in what they're trying to get. So if a candidate comes and they just want to get a straight up, what does the field look like right now? If you do just a straight up ballot test of me and my current opponents, we can do that. If they want to get an in-depth survey of how people feel about that individual and do some test messaging, so we can test, a background of a candidate, and does this make you more or less likely to support this candidate? Or if this person did this, does that make you more or less likely? If the opponent, they will also do some negative testing here, where they'll throw an opponent's name and said, if you know that opponent A worked at this job or did this, had this role in this position or something, does that make you more or less likely? So what they'll do is they'll take those results, though, and then formulate a campaign strategy around that. They also, again, dive into the methodology. So if they see that one of the test messages it appealed more to female demographic, then they'll want to message to those females the results of that polling question. So again, that's the science and the art of putting it all together and making sure that you're hitting the right demographics with the information that they want to hear on the issues that matter to them.
So with that, though, as you were speaking, I was thinking back to Trump's initial run. There was discussion of the fact that people didn't want to say they were voting for Trump. So how do you know, and not just about him, but how do you know if someone's fibbing because they just don't want to tell you? Is there advice for somebody when a pollster calls, be honest, be straightforward, have fun with it? What are your thoughts?
Sure. You can definitely put some a summary in the beginning, a prelude, if you will, sharing why you're gathering this information to try to build up that trust so people know that you're not selling information. They're going to be held anonymous, all of that. There is, at the end of the day, you'll see every poll have a margin of error, which kind of accommodates one way, how these can fluctuate to accommodate any liars that may be interested. I just feel like if you're willing to take a poll, there's a margin of error to accommodate that too.
Very true. All right, so now let's just, you are a long time Lansing watcher. What do you think? How do you think we're back to divided government? Last term, there was obviously there was a trifecta. The other thought I had about last term was the House Democrats had so many first-time members. I think it was 25 or 26. I think
quite a few.
Yeah, I think that's what led to the dumpster fire that kind of ended their run. Because when you're a freshman, you really don't know how the system works. And I'm not talking about back alley dealings and things. It's just there is a flow. And I think that they didn't quite understand it. And I think in some crazy ways, Matt Hall is sort of kind of a recipient of the fact that they've figured things out. The Democrats have, and how things roll. So anyway, your thoughts. You're here to talk about it. I'm asking you. What do you think's going on?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So when the Democrats had the trifecta, it was the first time in 40 years.
True.
Okay. And with that, I mean, that comes with a great deal of responsibility walking into those roles, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there's a difference in just being a state representative or being a minority leader. When you become the speaker and you are in charge of rallying your caucus and making things happen, or the Senate Majority Leader the same with their caucus, it's just a new skill, and you have to come with vision and plans. They were able to get a lot of kind of the lower hanging fruit in the first half of that first year, but then it kind of fell flat. And that also happened at the national level with President Biden and Congress as a whole as well. Like, there was no vision. And the Trump administration and other Republicans were able to capitalize on that for the 24 election. They came and said, you just can't be against something. You have to be for something. So that's when they brought together a lot of the things that Trump made on the campaign trail. Like I said, the Elon Musk, the tariffs. I mean, they were at least giving ideas as to what they wanted to do, assuming they would get elected. Meanwhile, Harris just said she wouldn't change a thing that Biden had done. So you can't just be against Trump. You have to come with a vision and a plan as to what you would do if you were in that role. And that's where I think the Republicans and Democrats really differed this past cycle.
So I want to get your thoughts on this, too. I mean, in the Senate, there's Winnie Brinks, who's been, in my opinion, very quiet as a leader. You've got Matt Hall, who has just basically taken the stage because nobody else wants it. And he is doing, I think, a great job. And
yeah, he is.
Governor Whitmer is sort of kind of disappeared. I know she's popped up a little bit with Trump in the Oval Office and all that stuff. But overall, I would bet that the Senate Democrats are not happy with her because she's not leading. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I will say for sure with Matt Hall, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, government is made up of three branches, right? Your executive, your judicial, and your legislative. And Matt Hall is the sole Republican that controls 1/2 of 1/3 of government, okay?
Yep.
That's not a big piece of the pie, but he's reforming the way and engaging people in the way that he is approaching state government, and he's holding their feet to the fire, and he's calling the shots right now. When the governor said fix the damn roads, Matt Hall's the only one that actually has a plan out there to do that, and he's now holding them accountable for it. He does these weekly pressers all the time, and again, it's more about the transparency of it. And you see the same thing with Trump too, is that it's the transparency of getting out there. You may not like what you hear, but you cannot blame them for not being accessible.
Correct. Yeah, and, I know that I was reading where, he's called some people some names. He's not, I mean, I don't see that as necessarily a terrible thing when he's not saying, this person is a terrible mother or terrible father. He's just saying, hey, they're an idiot.
Say, if they're focused on the name calling rather than actually fixing the problems that are hitting our state and our citizens and that the voters are truly worried about, they're losing.
Yeah, and if Matt Hall or whoever, former Rep Jack, thinks that so-and-so did something stupid, it's okay to say they're an idiot. It doesn't mean they're an idiot. Right. I don't know.
We could all do better at our jobs, right?
Yeah, probably so. All right, so let's see here. So Governor Whitmer, why is she hiding? What's going on there? What's happening?
You'll have to ask her that question when you find her. I want you to ask that question and let me know. But no, I think honestly, in a lot of cases, she's like many of the other Democrats. They were convinced they were going to win on election night. And largely in Michigan, when you have such high voter turnout, that conventional wisdom means that Democrats are going to win. So if you saw some of the live Facebook feeds that were going on election day with the lines of voters and all this, like the Democrats were like so excited because they thought it was in the bag. Yeah. And now they came back and they realized that, we just ran a celebrity tour. We didn't actually run a campaign. They had all the money. They had a lot of the volunteers. They had enough volunteers, Jack. In Pennsylvania, they were able to hit 2,000 doors an hour in Pennsylvania. Wow. That's insane.
That is
crazy. But at the
end
of the day, they didn't have the voters. They didn't have the message. They didn't have the vision of what they wanted to do if they were given another term. So with that, I feel like a lot of them are coming back and say, okay, we got to figure out what our party stands for and how we're going to message that and how we're going to earn back that trust in the next cycle with 26, but also more importantly in 28, looking at the next presidential election cycle too. So I think her and a lot of them are in that position right now, just figuring out what is their lane as a Democrat to make sure that they're winning back the voters.
Yeah. And Governor Whitmer specifically, there was a lot of talk about her, jockeying to be president. My thoughts have changed. I think, and, what do I know? She could prove me wrong, and I admit it. I see her now as saying, you know what? I'm mid-50s. I've done a lot. I've got my name recognition up there. I've got a book. I wouldn't mind becoming CEO of fill in the blank and just being a political talking head, make some coin, and get out of this rat race. I don't see her running for president. Maybe if somebody asked her to be VP, she might do it. But I see her as saying, nah, I'm ready to make some dollars.
If I could make a prediction like that, I probably shouldn't be in politics. I should be doing something and making a lot more money at.
Well, I'm going for it.
You're going. All right. We'll talk in a couple of years then. I want to cash in on this.
All right, and we're getting close on time, so I won't go through all the races, but I will, since governor's what we're talking about here, not asking you necessarily to predict the winner, but who do you think is the front runner? If running for governor in the Republican side right now, if I miss anybody, I apologize. Eric Nesbitt, leader of the minority in the Senate, Mike Cox, former Attorney General, and Congressman John James. Who do you see as the front runner right now?
So for today, I would say John James, and that's largely like we just talked about. That's largely because of his name ID. I mean, he's ran every election cycle since 2018. He's had hundreds of millions of dollars spent on that name ID when he ran for U.S. Senate against Peters and Stabenow, and now as a congressman. So, again, a lot of these early predicting polls are just based off on that name ID, which James definitely has.
Sure. And as Tom Izzo knows, how you start is not as important as how you finish. So, Cox.
No, I mean, let's be honest. In the last gubernatorial cycle, at this point in the race, James Craig was the one that was going to win.
Yeah. and
he never even got on the ballot. Tudor Dixon hadn't even announced, and the rest is history. So 18 months is a long runway when it comes to politics.
All right, on the Democratic side, Jocelyn Benson, Jocelyn Benson, Secretary of State, Chris Swanson, Sheriff of, I think, Genesee County, and then Garland Gilchrist II, Lieutenant Governor. Who do you think's leading right now?
Right now, Jocelyn Benson. Again, the name ID that she's out there. She's had her name on all of your license plate information and voter registration stuff. I mean, her name ID is high, which is consistent with other secretaries of state as well. They just have that public profile. But yeah, the race is a long time away, so we'll see how that unfolds too.
We'll see how it goes. Folks, we've been chatting with Janelle Leonard, owner of MRG. Janelle, don't hang up. We got to go to break, but don't disappear on me because I want to chat with you before we hang up. So I appreciate you being on the show today. Always informative. You are a knowledgeable individual.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate the time.
You betcha. We'll have you back on if that's all right.
Absolutely.
The Weekend Journal here on News Talk 580 WTCM. We'll be back with, what's going on in Lansing, all the legislation and that sort of thing that's been happening. My thoughts on it, if you will. Coming up on News Talk 580 WTCM.